mic with Mike.
On the mic with Mike.
On the mic with Mike.
On the mic with Mike.
I'm on the mic with Mike. He's like a guru.
No, he's a businessman with a great radio show.
And he supports the nonprofits.
Watch this show and grow.
Hi, I'm Reba Hollingsworth with CBS 6, and I was on the mic with Mike and had a fabulous time. Make sure you tune in every week.
Hi, this is Sylvia Farbstein, and I am on the air with Mike King. He is widening the lens of humanity, and I'm so happy to be a part of his journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike, the premier business radio program around. I'm host Mike King. I appreciate you being here with us. We're coming to you from the ESPN studios. One of the things we reach and talk to guests all across the board and in all different areas. So now we have healthcare experts in with us. Colin, welcome to the program.
Hi there, Garrett Hamilton from Cumberland Hospital.
I'm sorry, you know what I'm thinking of?
That's okay.
So, all right, so Garrett, sorry about that. Name of the business again?
Cumberland Hospital for Children and Adolescents.
All righty, so give us the 30-second elevator pitch. Let us know who you guys are and what you do.
Sure thing. Cumberland Hospital is a unique facility that takes care of children with chronic medical illnesses and concomitant psychiatric issues. We are able to serve children who have long-term medical needs as well as psychiatric needs. We are located in New Kent, Virginia, and have been able to work with kids between the ages of 5 and 17.
Let me ask you, so we're coming out of the pandemic. How has this affected the children who are out there? How are they affecting our kids?
Yeah, definitely. We are starting to see some interesting responses to the pandemic from our children. Increased levels of anxiety, specifically about reattending school, as well as some of the issues that we're starting to see from kids who are having trouble with being around larger groups of people. Just kind of had that year where they weren't around groups, and getting back into school, getting back into their normal lives has been an anxiety driver for them, a difficult time for some of them.
When we talk to business leaders who are out there, what did you learn from the pandemic from a business standpoint that before you would say, I would say, hey, Garrett, what about this? You'd say, Mike, in 1,000 years, that won't work. And then all of a sudden you look up and say, hey, that thing works.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've had to be really nimble. We've had to do some things that we never had to do in the past. And I think probably the biggest thing is the Band-Aid has truly been ripped off from a telepsychiatry and a telemedicine perspective.
We weren't real big believers in that before.
You know what? That's very true. That's very true. It was, especially in the psychiatric world, we had started to dip a toe into it, but now people recognize that you can receive high quality care from the telemedicine side as well as the in-person side.
Because I guess because we always thought in all types of business endeavors, we had to be in the same room to make the magic happen. And what that did was, so I was in the Army for a long time as a medic. If you weren't, sometimes you couldn't get to the medical facility. And during the pandemic, that really changed the way a lot of people, that was life for everyone.
Yes.
All of a sudden, it opened the door for you guys now that you're able to administer help from a distance. So the distance wasn't a barrier anymore.
No, it's a combination of the distance. And then also what we really started to see is some of the after effects of the pandemic were workforce availability, whether it was in your psychiatric world, whether it's your medical pediatrician world, or from a registered nursing perspective. And I think that what we're going to be seeing from a telepsychiatry and telemedicine perspective is the opportunity for people to be able to provide care, high quality care from a distance that we've never even thought about being able to do in the past.
How far can then people come to you from? Like, what's the areas that you help folks with?
Yeah, so actually Cumberland is a really unique facility in that in the last 18 months, we've received at least one referral from 46 different states in Washington, D.C.
Well, okay. So that does open up the areas for. And so when people contact you,
mm-hmm.
What have you seen recently that's really been, you would say, the number one thing that people are coming to you saying, we need help with this?
Yeah, so Cumberland has 3 separate different service lines at our facility. We have the medical primary, then we have a residential treatment facility, and then we also have an inpatient acute psychiatric unit. So if you kind of break those 3 down, if we looked at the medical, what's been very fascinating to see over the course of the last, I want to say 6 months to a year, is a fairly rapid increase in the number of referrals we're receiving for eating disordered issues.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Whether it's eating disorders or whether it's weight management issues, those sorts of things. So we have the Healthy on Purpose program at our facility, which is a weight management perspective, and then the eating support protocol, which is for kids with what most people would truly identify as, kind of your anorexia, bulimia type of situation. And we're starting to see much more from the community in terms of referrals for those. When you're talking about our inpatient acute psychiatric unit, that we're really seeing a lot of anxiety issues, depression issues, some of the stuff we talked about earlier.
One of the great parts about having your own radio program is I can ask the expert, sir, you are the expert. When we think of anorexia and bulimia, we always think about young girls. Always.
Yes.
Is that the case?
It is not. It is not exclusively the case. We have a very strong program that serves boys as well as girls. We are, the classic thing you're talking about in your mind is, that 14 to 17-year-old adolescent girl who is battling some of the societal pressures that have been there for years and years. And that's very true. We see those kids, but what we also see is we see young boys, we see adolescents, males and females, and as well as our transgendered youth as well, that are all dealing with that same situation.
On the mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond, that's where we are. So we're talking about the medical field, as well as we're looking at, and I guess things that we don't think about, the anorexia and bulimia. I guess because of COVID, we hadn't thought about that for a while, but all of a sudden you're saying that's back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
did it never leave?
It never truly left, but what we've seen is an increase. And I think, not to always demonize one area, but I think that social media has a lot to do with this. Kids are seeing the highlights of everybody else's life.
That is true.
And they're seeing those sorts of things, and it's become easier for them to see people with quote unquote perfect lives that our kids they're dealing with a lot, and they're looking for something to control. And that's part of what they're being able to grasp onto.
So the ages that you guys handle again are?
So our youngest kids on campus, our license is a little bit interesting. Our license actually is age 2 to 22. But with that being said, youngest kids on campus are typically 5 or 6 years old. Oldest kids on campus, 17. And then we can ask for dispensations from our licensing boards to be able to get an 18-year-old who needs to finish treatment, a 19-year-old who wants to sign themselves in.
So as a parent with a 5 or 6 year old, what are some of the things that I should be on the lookout for that should be of interest, as opposed to back in the day, the kids were just hyper, they were just, now all of a sudden there may be something. What would I look for?
Yeah, definitely. What I would always say to folks is when you're talking about a 5 or a 6 year old, or even your traditional teenager type of kiddo, what you really want to be looking for is when the issues start to actually create maladaptive behaviors in everyday life, right? If it's keeping them from being able to go to school, if in the community they're getting in trouble, or if they're having trouble being able to be involved in team sports or anything else along those lines. And then of course in the home, those are really the 3 spheres of influence for any child. And if you're having trouble in all 3 of those, that's when it really should start setting off some opportunities where you say, I should reach out for some help for my son or my daughter.
On the mic with Mike, we're here. We're talking all things. I guess right now we do come from a difficult time now. I mean, it's something, your job is hard. It's hard because I always ask people, who saves the care? Now, I got one good question.
Okay.
This is it. Who saves the caregiver?
Oh,
because the caregiver can't save them. They won't.
Yeah.
And so you're in the business of dealing with caretakers.
Yeah.
That's the people who work with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's in your industry.
Yeah.
How do you set the tone for those guys that they don't burn out? Because, your staff is always on the edge of burning out because they're caregivers.
Very true. The type of people who make the choice to come out and work in a facility like ours are a specific type of person. They're empaths. They're people who really want to work and really want to help. And those are the people, just as you said, Mike, that are the kinds of people who end up they burn out. And retention efforts are one of the biggest things that we have to be looking at. How do we make sure that we're providing for our providers? And, is it through the EAP program? Is it through just making sure that we have a strong team-based approach so that folks know that if I can't pick it up and run with it now, then someone else can for me? Those are the opportunities, but it's really making sure that as a leader, as a person in your facility, that you're not only looking out for the patients, you're looking out for your staff members and recognizing them just by looking them in the eye sometimes that they need a little bit of extra help that day.
Because a lot of times when everyone has the issues, I don't care what business industry it is, everyone needs workers. Everyone needs, and so I always ask the leaders who come in, how do you recognize the workers that you have so that you don't work them till the wheels fall off, because they're the ones who are left. How do you set the culture in an organization? I always talk about culture, and especially you guys are on the front lines. Now, when we were dealing with COVID, it was in the beginnings, it was the front lines. Now we're looking at it from the back end, some of these long lasting things.
Yeah.
How do you set the culture in an organization that I guess entices people to stay and flourish?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things is visibility. It's visibility and transparency. It's making sure that the leaders of the facility are not the times of yesteryear with they have their own executive bathroom and they're don't look at the man behind the curtain from the Wizard of Oz, right? You got to be out. You got to talk to your staff. You got to talk to your patients. They have to see you and they have to know that no question is off limits in terms of how are we going to be able to handle this safety issue? How are we going to be able to handle this upcoming problem? There are time and a place for all questions, but at the same time, you have to be the one who's willing to meet them where they are, go out and see them, talk with them, and make sure that they recognize that just because your jobs are different doesn't mean that you guys are after two separate missions. One mission, one company.
One mission, one company, and everyone has to understand and get that. Name of the business once again?
Cumberland Hospital for Children and Adolescents.
And you guys are out in New Kent.
Yes.
Can you touch on the perception of mental health, substance abuse, where we are now as opposed to a few years ago?
Yeah, definitely. The stigma behind mental health and substance abuse has always been there. And it's interesting to see that even in the industry, sometimes you'll see people who are not quite comfortable with it themselves. However, one of the things that I really want to highlight and just give a lot of credit to is this younger generation, the kids that are coming up now. They're not afraid to talk about it.
No, they're not. They're a lot better than old folks like me that we didn't. I mean, when you think about years ago, we didn't say cancer in public.
Yeah.
And to the point now. And what do you think the pandemic did as far as making people slow down and adhere to possibilities that we may need help? Before it was, I had to step off the hamster wheel because I wasn't strong enough. And so that was a mark on me. But the world got sent home on timeout. And we started to see everyone wasn't as strong as they thought. And younger people are like, hey, we need help.
I think part of it is that the way that things used to work is that we all could hide from each other 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
So our kids were going off to school and our spouses and our brothers and sisters, they were going off to work. And then we'd come together for that 2-hour period where we eat dinner together, hopefully. And then everybody did what they needed to do to go to bed. And if you held it together for those 2 hours, then you could get away with it. But when you're all sitting at home for a 12-month or 24-month stretch, can't hide it. And suddenly next thing you know, you've got, mom is saying, I need help. And the daughter's there seeing it. The husband's there seeing it. Everybody's in one room. Everybody's in one house. Maybe that's one of the silver linings of something like this.
It is something because it forced everyone to slow down because we're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we didn't know because that was just life.
Yeah.
Now I look at that. Before, as a salesperson, I'd be out morning to night just talking to people. Now from about 3 or 4 hours, like, ooh, Lord.
Yeah.
It seems like but all of a sudden people are more perceptive now. Businesses are also trying to be in tune to workers, to the staff, to understand our staff needs help. We can't be the old business model that used to be just because, well, we're going to do it this way. Why? Because that's the way we always did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Telemedicine is one of the big ones because all of a sudden I don't have to come to you to get help, which sometimes it may have been an issue. All right. On the mic with Mike, we got to run for a moment. We'll be back on the other side with more information. We're going to touch on, people are talking about suicide. We're also going to talk about some of the things that will help for adolescents. What are people out there doing? and some of the programs that you guys have. We're going to show some love and shed some light on it. On the mic with Mike. We'll be back shortly.
Great.
And
you know another guy named Mike? Make sure you check out my main man, Mike King Biz. Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 a.m. on Sports 106.1. On the mic with Mike is the champion of business talk radio. You're starting to irritate me.
Hey, yo, Richmond, it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, but keep moving forward. This is the Italian Stallion. Say the one and leave Philly and come to RVA. I always check out my man, Mike King Biz, on ESPN, 5-7 a.m. The champ of business talk radio. Emp, the man.
On the mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond. That's where you are, 5 to 7 a.m. as well. This is part of the Mike King Biz Radio Network. It is ESPN Richmond 106.1 every day from 5 to 7. The Choice 105.3 every day from 2 to 3. We got the man in the building with us. We got Pastor Foot from The Choice. That is my afternoon home. So we're going to talk to him in a little bit. Yeah, he's in here looking all dapper. I don't know. Well, he's looking like a radio. He's a preacher, but I told him, Garrett, I said, we got to watch the time. This is somebody else's station. See, at his radio station, he owns it.
There we go.
So
yeah.
he can take as much time as he wants. But here we're on the clock. So, all right. So let's talk about, your business, Cumberland Hospitals, has been in business for a very long time.
Yes, Cumberland Hospital was actually founded in 1983. So we're coming up on our 40th anniversary next year. Excited to be able to, to celebrate that. We've been in business as that facility dealing with kids with chronic medical illnesses with those associated psychiatric issues since that time. Had an opportunity to add a couple more lines of service over the years, but our mission is maintained since we were founded back in 1983.
And one of the largest private employers in the county.
Indeed, we are excited and proud to be the third largest private employer in the county of New Kent. We're up over 200 employees at our facility and continuing to add as we go.
When you look out from the business landscape, how do you figure what lines to handle and to take on?
Yeah, so it's a combination of what you're hearing from the community in and of itself, and then also a collaboration that we have with our regulatory agencies, whether it's the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and what they are seeing from their viewpoint, or the Virginia Department of Health. We collaborate with those folks. We listen to the community and drive service lines based off of community need.
So now, in my dealings with the good folks over at Poplar Springs, shout out to them because they are the sponsors of the chamber coming back to On the Mic with Mike. So John Brent and the SOFA, that is the Colonial Heights Chamber, as well as Petersburg, the newly formed chamber. So Poplar Springs is a sponsor for them, and we appreciate them for that. So when we talk to hospitals that are out there like yours, community involvement is always a big part.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit. It's hard for you guys to toot your own horn, but tell a little bit about what you do as far as the community goes.
Sure thing. There's a variety of different activities that we're involved with the community. Actually, one of the folks who's here with me today, she's not on the mic, actually, is Allison Dillo, who's our director of business development.
So wait a second, Allison, come on, jump on with this. You thought that you were just going to hide over in the side for a second. No. Okay, come on. You're going to step really quickly from a biz dev.
No. Well, I'll cover for Allison today. That's all right.
It's the next time that she comes.
Exactly. But Allison's team that's what they do. They're out there. They're meeting with the community. They're attending. Whether it's we just actually went to the Virginia Juvenile Justice Association spring conference to be able to provide assistance to them and find out what community need is there from the juvenile justice world. But we're involved in sponsoring events and sponsoring different things. And Allison has actually got us involved with the New Kent County Chamber, which was a new thing for us as well.
Alrighty, On the Mic with Mike. How can folks find you out there again? And the core areas of your interest that you help people with?
Sure thing. So again, we're located in New Kent County. You can see us online at cumberlandhospital.com. We have social media on Facebook as well as LinkedIn under Cumberland Hospital for Children and Adolescents. And then actually, again, if you have need for inpatient acute psychiatric care for your child between the ages of 5 and 17, happy to be able to assist you with that. And then also we have our longer term care, which is going to be that hospital-based care for kids with primary medical issues and secondary psychiatric issues, or the flip-flop of that on our residential units, which is going to be kids with primary psychiatric issues with associated medical issues.
One of the things I did learn from Poplar Springs is wraparound services. See, there you go. Both you guys shook your head.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Let's really quickly talk about what that means to the rest of the folks who are out there like me who didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, so wraparound services is it's really that next step in making sure that when you discharge a patient, you're discharging them to a service rather than to an idea. It's making sure that when you're discharging them, you're really going in and talking to them about, who is their outpatient psychiatrist going to be? Are they going to receive in-home intensive care? Are they going to receive a partial hospitalization or an intensive outpatient? We definitely utilize the PHP and the IOP care from Poplar Springs from time to time, being one of our sister facilities, but we also make sure that we're doing that as well for our kids.
It's been great having you on the program. You're part of the family now. Make sure you let us know the cool things that you guys have going on out there. We are in need of help for our kids, for our people. I just say reach out and get help. It is help that's out there that's available for people.
Definitely. Mike, thank you so much.
All right, on the mic with Mike Cumberland Hospital. I'd like to thank them. Also like to thank our good friends over Poplar Springs. On the mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond 5 to 7, The Choice 105.3. That's where you find us, as well as International Business Growth Radio. We're the best out there. Why? Because we get the best guests, we got the best sponsors, and our friends are out there. That's what we do. On the mic with Mike, the best in the business. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Now take care.